Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with the adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. No sooner were Scott and Jean on their honeymoon were their souls transported 2,000 years into the future when the Earth is ruled by Apocalypse. By the elderly version of their alternate universe daughter, Rachel, no less. After an altercation with the enemy, Scott manages to retrieve his infant son, Nathan, and now he and Jean have to protect him until they can find a way to put a stop to their most powerful foe. Issue 2's cover prepares us for a time skip, Scott holding a clearly older Nathan like they're awkwardly posing for a family photo. I guess Jean's the one with the camera. And is it just the style of the future era that sunglasses have lenses that are each nearly the size of a child's head? The issue begins with Nate doing what every child does on a road trip, asking if they're there yet. Oh good, we've missed the part where he endured hours of his parents singing off-key to oldies songs and waiting for the nearest McDonald's to make a rest stop. Under the aliases of Slim Dayspring and his mate Red, the family unit is arriving at the Coast Crest Citadel, which is misspelled Sid-a-tel. They've been keeping discreet for 5 years among the Sapien cast, constantly moving, scraping by, while keeping Nathan safe. The kid is a little irate that this is the third home in a Kron sect in which they've arrived at a home, but they always end up leaving when he's beginning to adjust. However, it's law that non-mutant families have to return to their city of origin for genetic scanning every 10 years. Yeah, I see some of the parallels too. You would tell me if you were a cyborg, right? Well, it hasn't come up in any of the father's homilies, that's why I asked. Nate asks Red if she and Slim have ever thought about dumping him like his real parents did, what with his diseases making it difficult for them to fit in. She teases back that it's crossed her mind to trade him in for a blender, something the child has never heard of, or a schmule. You'd need at least 2 kids to get a decent donkey, or 3 of your siblings for a good shorse. Scott reflects on the events that brought him and his wife to this future, though no update on what happened with Rachel, whether she's alive or dead. He stumbles, having busted his new body's knee shortly after arriving, so maybe that's why he didn't try out for the NFL. Now, one thing you'll notice is that when he and Jean were talking to Nate, their dialogue is in brackets, usually reserved for translations of other languages. In this case, it's a very clever indication that they're speaking the common dialect of their own era, rather than the modern one. It's something noticed by another traveler, overhearing them speak Old Anglish, but Slim insists he must have misheard. They bid each other good journey, and Scott telepathically informs Jean they need to be more careful. Documentation from the fractured remnants of the Ascani clan have enabled them to pass as the lowest of human castes originating from Coast Crest, but while they find it easier to speak like it's still the 20th century, it makes them stick out when they're trying to blend in, which risks their ability to hide and raise Nate outside the watch of Apocalypse's ruling class. And after clarifying all this, they begin making out. Exchanging exposition is one of Jean's lesser-known turn-ons. Oath! You two are in perpetual motion.
In this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics!
About 300 miles south along the Pacific is the House of Apocalypse, not to be confused with Apocalypse's House of Pancakes, where mutant cultural elites gather for all manner of excess, including Paladin Chevere, who we can see more clearly as one tall drink of water. He really doesn't like the rabble among him, so when a woman seems to try seducing him, he rebuffs her so forcefully it changes her clothes and hairstyle. She claims she just wanted to congratulate his win over the Ascani, this being the anniversary of their extermination, but he tells her to buzz off. Internally, Chevere laments that he wasn't completely victorious, having let the mysterious humans escape way back when. There's an explosion, and everyone thinks it's a human attack that'll kill them all, but Chevere orders them to be calm, using it how Apocalypse's vision of survival of the fittest has generated lazy, sloppy aristocrats who panic over one measly kaboom, caused by a boy named Strife. His latest instructor told him to study, the kid decided no, then eliminated him. The paladin stresses that even a low lev with little mutation to speak of has a right to life, their mutancy not to be eliminated unless given permission by the holy word. That word, of course, being Farfignugan. I'm not sure what's in his hand, maybe a weapon the kid was holding. Anyway, even though the boy is Sabanur's successor, he hasn't yet been given the right of extermination, and intends on making him learn that until Pappy arrives, at which point Strife ignores the lecture and runs into Apocalypse's waiting decrepit arms, while he inhabits armor with 2 floating heads for some reason.
Those are chock full of heady goodness.
He's told how Chevere lacks their power, thus their perspective, and the ruler must have a word with him for now, and sends the kid to do whatever he wants, even if it means incinerating yet another teacher. Honestly, when I started reviewing this comic, I did not expect to get Tucker Carlson's origin story. When alone, Chevere is allowed to speak freely, and he says he thinks Strife should grow up in his own time, and disagrees with his master accelerating his mutant abilities, in defiance of his long-held ideals of natural selection. Old man Sabanur agrees, but, as mentioned last issue, his bodies are burning out quicker and quicker because of his immense power, and the son of Scott Summers and Jean Grey's clone, surviving the techno-organic virus, should be just what he needs. And an editor's caption mentions that Pocky isn't aware that the kid he has is actually a clone. That's why you gotta read the fine print when you kidnap a time baby. He's determined to survive, but his loyal paladin wonders to himself if this will cost his boss the Empire, and if he'll stand back and let it happen. Will he point and laugh and say, "I told you so"? Will he turn it into a viral meme? These are the questions that weigh on a man's soul. Back with the Dayspring family, Jean uses biorhythms to help conceal Nate's cybernetic appearance, so long as they keep physical contact, since there are people who will hate and fear him for things they don't understand. She promises, however, that one day he'll be accepted and even respected, not needing her help to control his body. For now, they need to make it through this checkpoint, which turns into a problem when the vanguards destroy the card with Slim's credentials. He tries being civil about it, asking how they'll get into the city without their papers, but gets slugged by a tall blue bruiser, on the suspicion of being enemies of Apocalypse. The traveler from earlier backs this up, saying he overheard them speaking Old English, and therefore must have something to hide. "We were discussing a screenplay I'm working on, and I didn't want anyone stealing my idea for a Lord of the Rings remake where the cast are all Dobermans." Ah, dang it, I just gave it away, didn't I? Trying to pass as loyal to Apocalypse, Summers says that his mate was an Ascani servant, never believing their tenets, but sometimes feels more comfortable speaking in the old tongue. This doesn't work, only getting him smacked with a bottle, and the guards planning to hand the family over to Chevere, perhaps after they've had some fun, whatever that may mean. On impulse, the boy who would grow up to lead troops and be a walking garrison bites the mutant that attacked Slim, only to get knocked away. Scott catches him and is ready to use his optic blasts, which his current body can control much better. He gives the guards a final chance to let them through, but apparently the biorhythm disguise has faded, and Nate's mechanical appearance is revealed. The goons figure they can parlay the kid to the science staff for dissection and get themselves promoted, even wondering if he's a mutant too. They're about to take the boy when they're interrupted by a cyborg named Turin, rolling in on what looks like a biomechanical wheelchair that's part of his body. He's soft-spoken and cordial, but the Vanguard are immediately intimidated by his presence, insisting to him there's no problem. Even the baffled, unnamed traveler has heard of the guy, though thought he had died years back. "No, I just had an oil change that took longer than expected." Jean senses genuine concern for Nate from the stranger, who passes the lad's cybernetics as prosthetics, and isn't worth bothering Chevere over, as Prior Turin is what makes their assignment bearable, with amenities and Y-chromes, which they don't want to lose privileges to. The guards acquiesce, apologizing to Unit Dayspring and allowing them entry into Crest Coast. The traveler is irate that they're bowing to a convicted anarchist such as Turin. "Intimidating you by threatening to cut off your party supplies?" "Hey, until they decide to finally open up a party city in this town, we get what we can." The Traveler is outraged, claiming to take this matter directly to Apocalypse himself, as it's clear these three are the rumored survivors of the Ascani massacres. This doesn't sway the guards, who say the family isn't a threat and no one in their right mind would want to be in this city. However, their powers have been primed, and one guard asks Turin what they should do. Either that means their powers need to be expelled, or they just really want to hurt or kill something, because when the Prior tells them to improvise, what begins is one of many barbaric acts Nate will witness in his life, as the goons turn their powers on the blabbermouth Traveler, and the lad bids him good journey as he's taken inside.
He chose poorly.
It seems surprising that a human such as Turin would have any power or influence, but he explains that Crest Coast is like a tomb where people go to die, and he's more like a cadaver running a morgue. But it still serves a purpose, and he can confirm that something the Daysprings had forwarded weeks prior arrived without incident. Little surprised that Apocalypse absorbed Amazon while conquering the Earth. Scott asks if maybe the disposal of that Traveler was a bit excessive, but Turin states they're at war for their future and their planet, and things would have gone worse if Javert had been told about Nate. It's better that they make the difficult choices rather than have them made by others. And the comic ends on a 2-page spread of the inside of Crest Coast, several disenfranchised people desperate for hope that they do not know has just arrived, but won't be fulfilling any prophecies until he eats his vegetables and does his homework. Issue 2 was a bit of a slower burn than the first. We're introduced to Strife, the prospective indefinite host for Apocalypse, and get a bit of the kind of propaganda his empire deals in. Javert almost seems merciful when he's talking about low-level mutants deserving to live, though of course that comes with a grim exception, as per usual fascism. Not a lot of action, save for Cyclops taking a few lumps to protect his family, only to be rescued by a stranger that somehow seems to know why the Daysprings are there. He could be one of the few remaining Ascani that managed to eke himself some manner of influence, or maybe he has nothing to do with that religion, and is just a dude that's well-connected and as sick of Apocalypse's rule as anyone. It's stated that Nathan is viewed as an adopted child, which may be more of a documentation thing, that if they wanted to pass him as their biological kid, there would likely need to be a different record, one perhaps more difficult to forge. I can't say for sure, maybe it doesn't really matter. I will say Nate looks a bit older than I think he should be, more like 12 rather than the 6 or 7 suggested by the time skip. Tune in next week to see what else is in store for the Clan Dayspring. Another time skip? A big ol' street brawl? PTA meetings? The sky's the limit. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.